Give us a sense of what would be on your desert island dish.
Oof, I don't know if I can even admit this, but like, I've got into Taylor Swift.
Oh no.
My experience in football was quite fear and blamey. Football's a game of mistakes. When people talk about we've got to stop making mistakes, I think, well, you might as well stop playing football.
Yeah.
It's more important how you react to the mistakes, as I see it. I had to sing a cappella to the Swedish national anthem live in front of 3,000 people. Like, people paid for this. It's like, are you mad? You can talk about talent all you want and ability, but unless you've got a functioning team that understands what everybody's trying to do, the talent can get lost a little bit.
Hello and welcome to Ironcast, and welcome to a very special guest. Not Ginge, the 18th permanent manager of West Ham United, Graham Potter. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
You raised your eyebrows there when I said 18th permanent manager. Have you heard that number knocking about? It's a very select number of people in the history of humanity, the manager of West Ham United.
No, exactly. I was expecting, for some reason, it feels like a low number. So it's,
I think, isn't there some
honoured.
stat? Watford have had more managers in the last 5 years or something than West Ham have had in their history. There's some sort of stat like that. It's a very select number of people.
Yeah.
I was actually on the driving up here, I was thinking, I'm a West Ham fan. Obviously sat next to a West Ham legend. But it's such a famous club. It's such a famous organisation throughout the world. And I was wondering, how does it feel to be manager of West Ham United? Does it feel different? What is that feeling like?
Yeah, it's hard to articulate, but I think you're right. There's a aura about the club. I think, like I tried to talk about it in that I think it's a massive club, but it's still got a nice, almost family feel as well. I think that's what struck me at the club. You can see the supporters are so passionate. They're so loyal. Yet there's a real, there's a desire to have a real connection to the team as well. And it doesn't feel like they're there. It feels like they're quite close to you. Yeah. So, and then you see that number and how long this club's been in existence for. It's a low number, So it just goes to show that it's. I suppose I feel really proud. Is the truth. You've got a responsibility, of course, because of the history and the tradition of the club and the ambition of the club. So you feel that responsibility, but it's like how lucky, how privileged and how fortunate I am as well. You've got to take the both things.
It means West Ham means so much to so many people in the kind of local community. I think, Ginge, you've spoken about this. When you first joined West Ham, you suddenly realise how many West Ham supporters there are. Have you had that moment yet where you're queuing to get a cup of coffee and someone says, good luck? Have you had that yet where you've kind of...
Yes. Yeah. Walking about. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And also, like, my family is still in Hove, Brighton. So there's West Ham fans there as well that all of a sudden are coming out. Oh yeah, I'm a West Ham fan. Good luck. So it's you realise how big it is, how big the club is for sure. And that's exciting. That's really exciting.
I always said that when I was a player. I was from South Wales originally. Signed for West Ham in 2005. Never seen so many West Ham fans come out of the woodwork. They're everywhere. But I was going to say, if you, like Chris just mentioned, if you come across the West Ham fans in the street, I still get it now. I've been retired 5 years from West Ham, but they still come up to me. I think when you're involved with this club, it just sort of, it's with you forever.
Yeah, no, I get that sense. Like I said, I mean, I've only been, it feels like I've been here longer, but I've only been here a few weeks. And most of the time I've been not out in the streets because I've been either working, preparing the games or whatever else. But whenever I've gone out, you can sense the community. The club is in there, it's part of the fabric of everywhere. So that's gonna be nice to experience that more and more, I think.
So you've had 5 games, only a few weeks, like you say. How have you found those initial few weeks? What's it been like for you?
Well, it started off like amazingly hectic because you sort of arrive at this club on Thursday, I think it was, first day, and you're just trying to get to know everybody, and then there's a game on Friday. It's pretty, pretty unique in terms of how the preparation is. So then you're into like a 3-game week, which is busy anyway. So it's a bit weird because you've got, there's a club and everyone you want to get to know, and there's loads of people at the training ground that you need to meet and find out who does what and get to know everybody. But you've got 3 matches, so the focus is on the players and the focus is on how we're going to play and what we're going to do and all that stuff. So that was the first week. But I have to say, overall, generally, like, the support has been amazing. From the supporters to the people in the training ground to the players. Everybody's been really, I would say, really supportive, really positive. There's a feeling that we want to do something, and I think that was one of the attractions here. I think there's a connection that needs to be made. There's an identity that can be built, and I think that's really, really exciting from my perspective.
Going back to your first game, Villa away in the Cup, was it on the Friday night? You talked about it. I was at the game. I went up and watched the game. There was, to me, West Ham fan, there was a noticeable difference in the intensity, the pressing. And you said you only came in a couple of days before. Did you manage to get much into the boys before the first game?
Well, I would say just messages, really.
Yeah.
We had one training session, but I think the foundation, the start point was always, how are we going to behave? How are we going to act on the pitch? And then just the requirement, I think, of okay, if you want to be successful at this level, and we want to move towards how we want to play, the foundation is around an organisation and then an intensity and then a togetherness. In terms of how we act, it's not going to be perfect, that's for sure. But we can make a start point. How we react when things don't go very well, when people misplace a pass, for example. We've got no time to be disappointed. We need to, we need to be a team, and we need to act like a team. And I think that was the start point. And I think what it's like. Sometimes you just have to remind people that that's what it is. You can talk about talent all you want and ability, but unless you've got a team and a functioning team that understands what everybody's trying to do, the talent can get lost a little bit.
But what about the talent? Like, in terms of first impressions of the squad, you've had that a few training sessions now. Has anything surprised you about the squad in terms of the talent that's there?
Well, yeah, I think always, you see from the outside and there's, some good players. And then it's not until you work with them that you understand them more and more. Our frustration, I suppose, has been that quite a lot of the talent hasn't been available for us. So, we've got into situations where, we're quite depleted, but at the same time, the players that we've had, I think, have stepped up and again, that team dynamic has been quite good, even though, like I said, we're far from where I think we want to be in terms of what it's going to look like. A foundation of, I think, a team pulling for each other and working together and on the same page. I think that's there. And then, the ability and the talent. It's like I said, I'm reluctant to talk about it when I first come into a football club, because I think it's not the most important thing. That collective, that environment, how we act as a team, how we act together, how we treat each other every day, how we act every day. That to me is, I know we're living in a world where everyone's bothered about who we're going to sign and ability, individual players, because rightly so, they're the talking points of everything. But we forget that it's a team game, football. It's a team game. And we need that mentality to enable the talented players to show and to be themselves.
Ginge mentioned, like, there seemed to be a renewed intensity and energy to the team when you took over. Do you feel like you can feel the impact you're having already? Are you kind of satisfied that you can see the direction, that there's improvement there? Do you feel like you're getting results?
Yeah, I think there's a definitely sense of a positivity. I definitely, you sense whether the players are buying in or they're, engaged. I definitely get that. I don't listen to too much of the noise from outside, to be honest. I don't know what the external voices are. I think the supporters have been, unbelievable to us in terms of how they've how they got beyond the team in the games that we've been here. At Chelsea the other night, the support was, I think, recognised a spirited team performance. Not perfect, and again, not probably where they want to be long term, but certainly from a direction or a team looking like they're on the same page, fighting for each other. I think that's a good place, and I think you can make that impact, and you see that initially. Our job is to carry that on and to add little bits as we go.
I could definitely. It's an interesting point. Like, I felt on was it Monday night at Stamford Bridge, you could hear from the fans. Like, the fans felt a bit. Their intensity is not only just coming from the players. That renewed energy seems to be coming from the fans as well. I feel like they're responding. Did you sit in the dugout thinking that about the fans? Maybe, like, it seemed you can always feel that there's a direction that we're traveling in.
Well, yeah. I mean, obviously, I don't know before me,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
So all I can comment on is now. I mean, from Aston Villa first game, the support there was incredible, I thought. Obviously, it helps that we score early and, you know, but nevertheless, I think the results haven't been like that. You know, we lost the game, but nevertheless, the support was amazing throughout the game. Chelsea, I thought the support was amazing. So, and football supporters, they're not. I said after the game, especially West Ham fans, I don't think they're daft. You know, they can see something, and again, they won't be going, "Oh, okay, this is absolutely perfect." But I think as long as they can see a team that is fighting and is working hard and it looks like something there, then I think there's patience and there's understanding and support, and we can't ask for any more than that.
I think that's the real thing with West Ham fans. I think, you know, not every game's perfect, not every result's perfect, but if the effort's there, certainly I felt it as a player, if the effort's there and the willingness to run and do the basics, if you like, the West Ham fans are, you know, I always say it, the best in the world. And like I said, I've watched every game, I think, since you came in, and that's definitely been a massive difference, I think, as a fan watching it.
A lot of West Ham fans, and I include myself in this, are really excited about the brand of football you've established at other clubs. And I wondered, like, is there a time scale for how long it takes to get there? Do you have it? Is there a figure? How does it work? Or could it happen next week? Like, how long does it take to kind of establish those ideas and get the team playing a certain way?
Yeah, you can imagine I've been asked that question a few times, and it all depends on the context. It all depends on, you know, the squad you inherit, what time you inherit it, all these things. If you inherit it at the start of the season, where you've got a 6-week preparation phase in pre-season, where you can start to do a lot of, you know, work around, you know, tactical implementation of your ideas. Obviously, you've got a transfer window and a summer to be able to bed players in that fit your style of play. So I think it's difficult to say, okay, it can take this amount of time. When you go in, I think halfway through the season, it becomes more complicated because you've got results that you've got to, of course, react to, and it shapes you sometimes. And obviously, you just got to understand where the club's come from and where we've been at as a club. Obviously, the first part of this season probably didn't go as well as we'd like. You've got a bit of investment in the summer that hasn't probably shown itself to its maximum at the moment. So you've got that whenever teams change around and there's that movement, I think it just takes a bit of while to calm down for everybody to understand, okay, what's my role in this new team now? You know, you understand how the club has played from the last sort of 3, 4, 5 years, a certain style. You want to move towards a different style. This can't just click your fingers and all of a sudden that changes. So there's lots of things, but I think you start, whatever my ideal of it is I think it's important that you don't go to it too quickly. You've got to understand where the reality of it is now, and okay, step by step, you know, build towards where we all want it to be, which is an attacking, possession-based football that is, you know, aggressive when we don't have the ball. Because I think the supporters want to see that as well, as much as they want to see, you know, attractive football. There's an intensity and a desire to try to get the ball back as quickly as we can. But again, step by step, otherwise you go there too quickly and things can get messy.
We've got to talk about, there's a few new faces at the club. One of them is Kyle Macauley, who's the new head of recruitment at West Ham United. He's come from Chelsea, where you worked together. You also worked very well at Brighton. And I understand you also worked together at Swansea, where Kyle used to go out with Ginger's brother in the pubs of Swansea, incredibly.
Wow. Rumour has it. Anyway.
Rumour has it. But yourself and Kyle, I mean, when you look at it's almost like it's a famous partnership in terms of the players you're able to bring through at Brighton. Can you give us a sense of how you two work together and how you intend to work together at West Ham?
Yeah, well, I mean, we've been working together, I think, 6 years in Sweden as well. So it's sort of pretty much, I don't know how many years that is, but it's a long time. And I just try and articulate like this. It's, as a head coach, sometimes, well, you just haven't got time to look at players in a really detailed way, to make an assessment of them, to give the information that you need to work within a department that's doing loads of work. In recruitment, you have to have lots of conversations and lots of discussions because the piece is moving all the time. And when you're a head coach, you just haven't got that time to have those conversations. So Kyle is someone that I've known working wise for a long time. He knows me. He knows the type of football we want to play. He knows the type of environment we want to create. we've been doing that for a number of years now, which is essentially from the third tier of Swedish football through to the last eight of the Champions League. And along that way, it's been about signing players, the right ones for us that fit into our environment, that fit into how we want to play, and developing them and hopefully growing the individuals and the team and the club. So I think so he just does my thinking for me in that space, really, because my responsibility ultimately is the 20 odd players that we have and trying to understand them and get the best out of them. If I waste too much time thinking about other players, I'm neglecting my core business, if you like. So he's really valuable. He's super smart, and he also, like I said, understands from my perspective how we want to play, what the permutations could be if we do this or we'll do this, or how does that work. So I think he's going to be a really good asset for the club.
At what sort of point, like maybe talking about transfers, what sort of point would he come to you and say, right, we like this player, this is the player, and then you'd have the conversation, I take it on that, and then watch the videos or whatever? Is he that much involved?
Yeah, it would be, and I think he would. Like I said, football clubs have got departments that are in recruitment these days. It's a global market. Everyone's looking, So it's important that the head coach doesn't undo all the good work that is done by the club in terms of like identifying players. Imagine if you just spend 6 months tracking a player and then you send the head coach to watch him and he just has a very good game. The head coach goes, "Nah, he's rubbish."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But
we once signed Marco Boogers on the back of a VHS. So,
well, exactly. Yeah, plus and minus.
I'm glad we're not doing that anymore. Oh, that's really exciting. I'm really interested to talk about your background, and some of the guys at West Ham are laughing because I'm a little bit obsessed with your kind of how you started your managerial career. You mentioned it there, managing in Sweden, Östersunds, right? I think was it the fourth or the third tier of Swedish football
Fourth.
The fourth tier.
Fourth, yeah.
All the way up to the top league, into the Europa League, beating Arsenal at the Emirates. This is like the Roy of the Rovers of management. This is like a football manager career kind of thing. Can you give us a sense of like, where did your ideas for management come from? They've obviously had such an impact there. Did you turn up on day one with a good idea of what you wanted to do as a manager, or did you learn in Sweden? Like, I'd love to know the evolution of your thinking.
Probably started before then, actually, because I was a professional footballer for 13 years, I think it was. So, you gather your own thoughts around management. You get different experiences from different managers, good and bad. And I suppose I stumbled across, okay, what am I going to do for the rest of my life? When I stopped playing football, what direction do I take? And I stumbled across, started to do my badges like most players did without a real idea about what I wanted to do. Started to do them, didn't feel totally comfortable with that whole, stop, stand still, I'm the coach, I'll solve your problems for you type way that you had to be. So I was like, okay, if I'm going to do this, I need to find a way to become a better coach, because I couldn't rely on my playing. I wasn't a top player. I couldn't rely on that. And clearly when I started to coach, it felt uncomfortable to me because I was like, I need to be better at this. Footballers, we do the job that has come easy to us. Like, and then all of a sudden you're out of that job and you've got to learn something else, whether it's the media, whether it's coaching, you've got to put yourself in situations where you're a little bit out of your comfort zone, bit by bit, and hopefully you get better and better. And so I started to do a degree. I finished off with my degree.
Degree in social sciences, MSc in leadership.
Yeah, that was when I went to the university. So I because I got a degree, I ended up with this, like a graduate position at the university, which was football development manager. So I started to work with the players there, the students there. A lot of the students had been released by academies. They were decent players, but they were there to be students. So it was quite a nice environment for me to learn to coach, to start working with teams, to working with players, make some mistakes, all that stuff. And then I did my master's, which was around leadership. So, but the interesting thing about that, not necessarily although the course was great, it was the people that were on it. There were surgeons, there were people from the British military, special forces. So it was a lot around, football was about, the old saying around, it's more important than life and death, that type of thing. And actually these were people that were in life and death situations. And it's how you dealt with failure, how you dealt with the stressful situations. And my experience in football was quite fear and blamey. a little bit, and I'm thinking, oh, that's quite interesting. How in a surgery, somebody makes a mistake, you can't be pointing fingers and blaming people.
Yeah.
You've got to be able to deal with the mistake and recover it, and so that was really interesting. And I suppose that 5-year period left me with loads of studying. I had loads of theory around how to put my experiences in context. I could theorize my playing experiences. I could understand about leadership. I could understand self regulation, or self-awareness, empathy, all those things. And I'd also been practically about, okay, what does training sessions look like, and how can you influence players, and what type of sessions they enjoy, and all that stuff. So the point when I arrived in Sweden, even though it was the 4th tier in Swedish football, I'd sort of had quite a lot of ideas because of that 5-year period. And then obviously you just go into more practical experience of being a football manager at a club. What does that look like? I mean, actually the level wasn't too far away from where I was in the UK, which was about the 9th tier. When I was working with students, we were doing the FA Vars and FA Cup and stuff like that. So it was a fun time, because you got working with students, you're trying to play football in an attractive, possession based way, but you're playing in the Northern Counties Div 1 full of blokes that are just there, right, let's kick the students here. That's what they'll do. So that was like that was our challenge at that time. And looking back, it was an amazing experience, really.
You mentioned it there, and there's actually one quote. I read an old interview where you talked about in your playing career, playing in a culture of blaming and fear. And that blew my mind, because when I mean, I've never played anything like the level that you two have. But when you watch those old sports documentaries in the 90s or the noughties, and you see managers, and I know you played under Barry Fry briefly, like you see documentaries about him, it's a lot of having a go at people. And it's wow, what an intense environment. But I read that and I thought, I think you might be onto something. This isn't the right environment to get the best out of people. And I wondered, did you feel like that at the time when as a player? Did you think this kind of culture of blaming and fear is not going to get the best out of these professional athletes? And is that something you're looking to move beyond now?
That is exactly what it was. I think that's the first time I heard it, because obviously I was being 42. That's exactly what it was. Sometimes playing in fear of the manager or something like that, you're going to get shouted at by the boys, and that's amazing, because that's exactly what it was.
Well, there's already enough, whatever the word is, fear. You have to admit that, because everyone wants to win. You've got supporters that are gonna, if you don't win, they're going to be emotional, they're going to be upset, they're going to be angry. You don't want to face that. You fear of keeping your spot in the team. You don't want to be the guy that makes a mistake that costs the team points. So there's already lots of stuff going on. It just felt to me that why would you add to that? The coach's job, and it's a balance, because you need to hold people accountable. People need to be responsible. But I don't think that blame and fear is necessarily overly healthy. I think it should be about, okay, I'm here to help you and make sure that you're performing to the best that you can. And part of that is accountability and responsibility, but not blame and fear. There's enough of that around already. That's how I saw it.
Yeah.
But I mean, but like I said, it's not like, we can't give people candid feedback, and that that's not good enough, and you need to do better. No, that you can still do that. But I think the blame culture, I think that's when it starts to get a little bit, everyone's protecting themselves. And if people are protecting themselves too much, and they're in survival mode too much, then they're not really being themselves. They're not bringing the full performance to the team, as I see. And I think it takes more to be able to create an environment where people are accountable. They do feel responsibility, and they do feel like, okay, because football's a game of mistakes. When people talk about we've got to stop making mistakes, I think, well, you might as well stop playing football. Because it's a 90-minute game. The score is 0-0, 1-0, 1-1. So basically all your attacks fail, mostly. So to say, well, let's stop making mistakes is, well, you just don't understand football. Football is a game of mistakes. It's more important how you react to the mistakes, as I see it. Of course, you want to try and improve your performance so you don't make as many. The better you are, the better you play, the more that you limit that. But they'll always happen, because we're human beings, and it's the type of game it is.
When you talk about fear, you said that I've played in games and played with players with the fear of hiding, not wanting the ball. If it's not going well, or you're in a relegation battle, that is summing up playing in fear. You're looking for your midfielder, and he's sort of hiding behind an opposition because he doesn't want the ball because he's a fear of making mistakes. It happens all the time.
Yeah.
It really got me thinking that quote, because I don't know if this is the case, but it feels like that culture of blaming and fear is maybe a uniquely English thing in the English leagues. And I wondered whether that's actually been holding back English managers because they've experienced this culture. Because if you look at the really successful managers in England, they've typically come from abroad. Do you think there's any... Am I onto something there with that? Like, I just read what you were saying, and I was like, oh, is this the problem with English managers? Is this the reason?
I'm not sure. Well, it could be English football as a whole thing. Players in the end, because you only have to hear at times when we were playing, there was a fear around playing for the national team. You know, players would articulate that. But if we didn't win here, we knew the consequences. We knew what would happen. Now you could argue that that's the same in any country. So get over it type thing. I think it's something we just have to understand and acknowledge, because in the end, you need to bring the best performance you can in order to win games at the highest level. Because, okay, we might be English, but the French are good at football. So are the Italians, so are the Germans, so are the Argentinians, so are the Brazilians. So how do we think we can win if we're not bringing our absolute best to the game, our absolute best performance? And then you just, okay, well, how do you get your best performance? Do you do it by blame and fear? Or is there another way of going, well, we need to be responsible, we need to be accountable, but we need to drive a high-performance environment, a high-performance culture to be able to go, okay, we can deal with this pressure. We understand what it is. We can embrace it. We're not in fear of making a mistake. We're not in fear of getting the consequences. We're going to go for it, and we're going to do our very best with a plan, with an idea. I think that feels to me a more healthier way of thinking about football and thinking about sport.
Do you think, over your manager, have you ever seen a difference in the players in that sort of sense, though? As in, they don't react so well maybe to the shouting and like they used to when I was playing, the shouting, they don't react to that. Is it more, is it a different approach to them? As in, if there is a mistake, say, look, a goal's gone in, or did you have to change the way you approach the players with it? Or have you always been like that?
I think I've always been like that. I don't get me wrong. I think sometimes when I was younger, I made my mistakes as a coach. I remember thinking back to, because sometimes you just do what you've experienced. So sometimes, you've experienced a manager flipping at the end of the game, tearing strips out of you because you think that's what they should do. Yeah. And then you go, well, okay, what's the benefit of that? There's emotion. You haven't seen the whole picture of the game yet. You don't know what's happened really. We think we do, but we don't. We're just hurting because we've got pain because we've just lost, and you want to get rid of that pain somehow. And, and that's what it is. And there's a culture around an acceptance that back in our day, it was after the game, the debrief was just effing and jeffing and
kicking water bottles.
Exactly.
I've seen a few managers kick a water bottle before. But the actual thing.
But as as society's moved a different direction, I just don't think people now respond to that type of stuff. Yeah. But at the same time, I think you still need, like I say, you still need to be critical when there's a time to be, because that's how people improve. But it has to be done in the right way. And I think you have to structure your environment so people go, okay, I want the feedback. I want that critical. I want that positive praise. I want that validated praise. I want that constructive feedback, that constructive criticism, because then I know how to improve. I know how to get better.
I suppose it's down to the players as well. From the staff, the manager, the coaching staff, putting those levels in. That is the level. You know what I mean? If you drop below that level, there won't be a shout. But that is the level we've set. So that's where you need to perform at week in, week out, I suppose.
Yeah, and that's ultimately the job. The job of the coach, the head coach, is to almost go, okay, well, how can we create the clarity at a team level so that everybody within the team knows, okay, this is my responsibility. This is what I'm meant to do within the team.
Yeah.
Because as soon as there's not that clarity, all of a sudden players have got excuses and there's a bit of stuff that they can get away from, and you can't hold people as accountable as you'd like. So I think that's the job, really, to make it clear on a team level, okay, this is what we're trying to do collectively. And then as a centre back, this is what we need you to do.
Expect,
you know what I mean? And then you can go, okay, but we agree that that's what you're meant to do. And then you can see, like, you haven't really, and then you can have that discussion with the player, and the player, okay, fair enough, because it's all clear. But if you're blaming and you fear, and all of a sudden you're survival mode, and you're protecting yourself, and no, it wasn't me because he did this and he had that, and in the end that can spiral into not a very nice dynamic, and pretty quickly the team isn't functioning very well.
Well, one thing I read was I don't know if this was part of your education, but you've definitely been around places and examined other training methods. I think I read you went to Spain and I don't know if it was in Spain, but you discovered like, holistic training methods. And I've done a lot of Googling, but I couldn't figure out what a holistic training. It's on your Wikipedia.
Okay.
But what is a holistic?
I don't think the boss will. I don't think that. I was going to say. I don't think the
Well,
boss.
funnily enough, we started to talk about this in with my ex-chairman in Sweden. Everybody talks about holistic development in football. You know, we want to develop the person. Oh, okay. So how do you actually develop the person? What do you actually do? And that's what it led to his idea around the culture stuff, because it was about putting people in difficult situations, uncomfortable situations, dealing with being outside the comfort zone. And that's how we thought about developing the person alongside the footballer. So I suppose when if somebody says what's holistic development, I suppose it'd be just how does the person develop alongside the footballer would be my simple answer. And then obviously you've got to appreciate the context that you're in. You can't just copy and paste something from us to Sund into West Ham or wherever else. You've got to understand, okay, how can I help these individuals?
And so this is things like, I read that you'd taken them to a theatre workshop players once and got them to perform in a little play. Is that accurate?
I can't take. See, this is what happens.
Quite fancy that.
Yeah. it was the chairman's idea, but I was the head coach at the time.
Okay.
So I have to lead this process. What happens is it becomes my idea. Yeah. You know what I mean? It just spirals. It spirals into this is my idea. I mean, it was a genius idea in fairness, but it wasn't mine. But he was, we went, he basically used culture as a way to expose people to young players or football people, to uncomfortable situations. So we had to perform like a play, we had to write a book, we had to sing, we had to dance. So you can imagine a football team. Like,
I bet they're all all right in the last two. The acting and the writing the book, they might struggle. The singing and the dance. I'd be all right with singing and dancing.
Yeah, well, some were better than others. Yeah, but it was quite fascinating to watch how it developed from like, we had a new signing in it. First of all, he's like, no, I ain't doing this. I'm not doing this, like singing. And then over a couple of sessions and doing it with the team, and nah. And eventually starts to warm up a little bit. And by the end of the show, when we're doing the show, he's like walking around the stage like he's Mick Jagger. It's just like completely from, no, I'm not doing this, to, yes, I'll buy into everything, because he probably felt a bit safer in the environment, all that sort of stuff. So, it was something that the chairman did. And it was fascinating to see how it worked, how it stripped away the hierarchy. We're all the same. We're all, I had to sing a cappella to them in the Swedish, the Jämtland national anthem live in front of 3,000 people.
3,000 people?
3,000 people, yeah. It was like a proper show.
Oh, I didn't think it was like, I didn't realize it was like an audience.
It was mental. Like, people paid for this. It's like, are you mad?
People paid?
They paid, yeah.
What?
Yeah. I know. But to be fair, if you listen to me sing in front of 3,000 people, it's worth paying for that.
Big refund queue.
Not because it's any good, because it's awful.
That's amazing. Speaking of songs, I'm sure I, like many others, listened to Gareth Southgate's Desert Island Disc before Christmas, and I'm sure you can guess where this question is going. I was amazed by some of his song choices, but I thought it was quite revealing of a manager. So I'd like to ask you, you don't need to give me all 8 plus your luxury item, but what would be, give us a sense of what would be on your Desert Island Disc.
Oof. So I think this is a tricky question, because it needs some time to think about.
Off the cuff.
Yeah, but I think you'd want to do it over your lifetime and some songs that sort of meant something to you. So, like, when I think back, one of the first album my dad bought was Queen Greatest Hits, and Bohemian Rhapsody was just like, that was getting bashed all the time. So at some point, that'd be one of them. But then I've gone I'm quite eclectic. To be fair, I don't know whether I can even admit this, but like, I've got into Taylor Swift.
Oh no. Right, thanks for coming on.
See you later. That's all the positivity's gone now.
She's having a moment. That's fine.
But I'm also like, I don't know, Sam Fender. I'm quite into Sam Fender, and I know he's doing a show here. So I might have to miss that because I'm away. But I'm all over the place musically.
I am as well. Exactly the same. Listen to anything.
In terms of the music the boys are playing at the moment in the dressing room, you near a Shazam in it, the odd song, or is it none of it for
but
you?
it's quite good because you just get exposed to stuff that you wouldn't normally listen to. And I've got young lads as well. So my eldest is 14, so I'm getting I'm up with I'm down with the kids now in terms of and he's listening, and I'm listening to it, and he's looking at me, Daddy, this is not for you. This is not for you. So I'm trying to be cool, but it's not happening. He'd be absolutely mortified that I've mentioned Taylor Swift. He'd be absolutely mortified.
I don't mind a bit of Taylor.
Back to football, and obviously we've just closed the January window, and in comes Evan Ferguson and James Ward-Prowse. Great to have him back. How are you feeling about those two signings?
Yeah, really good, really positive for different reasons. Well, firstly, both really good lads that I think will fit into the group, that will help the group, that will contribute to our daily work. They bring different attributes at different stages of the career. Evan's a young player who's started off really exciting. Has got a real eye for goal. Scored in the Premier League. Had some issues with injuries, which has probably stopped him going from where we thought he would go. So the challenge now is to get him on the pitch, to get him enjoying his football, to be injury free, because he brings a quality I think that's evident then. And then obviously James has come with a lot of experience, a lot of quality, can help us in the midfield positions as well. So yeah, really really pleased with both of them. I think it was as I said earlier, the club had invested a lot of money in the summer, so I don't think we've seen the full extent of that investment. We need to try to help that develop as well, and to get those two players, Evan on loan, I think was good business.
In terms of, you mentioned like the injury list at the moment, how close is Evan to coming back, and can you believe like this run of injuries we've had? It feels like terrible luck.
Yeah, I mean, Evans training. He was on the pitch for Brighton in his last game, so he'll be, he's available. We just need to see whether he's available to start, whether we have to build his minutes up, that type of stuff. But he's training, and he's training well. Obviously, yeah, against Chelsea, when you miss Paqueta, you miss Alvarez, you miss Somerville, Todibo, Fulkrug, Antonio, they're quite significant players.
Big players,
and even if they're not starting, arguably most of them are. Off the bench, you've got some options as well. So, but it is what it is. Of course, I'd like all those guys to be available, and things would be in some ways a lot easier. But at the same time, the players that have stood up and have stepped in have been great. So we just need to keep working with our general idea and help players get back to fitness as quickly as we can, and then just manage their minutes to make sure there's not breakdowns and things like that.
And also been blooding some academy talent as well. Ollie Scars and Lewis Orford coming into the team. How impressed have you been with the academy talent on offer? Obviously winning the FA Youth Cup not so long ago. Have you been impressed by what you've seen? Yeah,
I have. Yeah, I've been impressed with the people in the academy. From Mark to all the coaches there, you can see there's a real passion, real expertise, real quality in the people there in the academy, which means that the players there are enjoying the football and showing what they can do. And then it's obviously our job to try to, not all of them clearly can get through to the first team. That's not possible, but making sure that the pathways are there, so that if there are players that we think can be, Premier League players, there's an opportunity there for them to show that pathway. And yeah, we're looking forward to working with them more and more. It's an important part of the club. So it's always been an important part of how we've seen, a club developing. You've got to look externally, of course, for you to improve your team, but I think you've also got to be aware of what you've got in the building and understand what that looks like in terms of development, in terms of how you can go from, under 18s to under 21s to under 23s to, time in the first team to eventually being a regular Premier League player. I mean, it's something that we'll try to do, but we also know that we're ambitious. We want to win. We want to make sure we're competitive in the Premier League, which is, the hardest league, if the hardest league in the world.
You talk about the pathway there. It's healthy for the club in general, I think, when they see the two lads, getting on the pitch, playing, starting or being on the bench. For the boys, it does under them in the 18s, thinking, hang on a minute, these two boys have had a chance, and it's sort of up their game because they can see that pathway, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think that our job is to interact with the academy guys regularly, daily. We're always in touch with who's doing well, who's doing well, how you getting on. Players come up and train, and so they get more and more used to being around. So it's not quite a rabbit in the headlights when they eventually take that step up. So it's trying to normalise it at the same time, understand that how big the challenge is, but at the same time, it can happen.
Yeah.
There has to be a plan, and there has to be an environment. I think the environment's the key. Again, if you're talking about young players, if young players are coming into a blame and fear culture, it's difficult.
Tough.
It's difficult.
Are you the sort of manager that, say you were down on numbers, you'd go to the under 23s and grab a player for the game at the end or something, or to get involved in the training?
Yeah, and I think you've got to balance it with not disrespecting the under 23s program and the 21s program. That's where I think the daily communication, helps, because then all of a sudden the coaches can see, okay, yeah, it's good for the players because you get to know them more. You get to know them as people. You get to know them as footballers better.
Yeah.
How they interact with the players, how they interact when they're training with the first team. And I think it's good for the academy as well, because, like I said, they're getting exposed to a higher level of training occasionally, which is good for their development.
Yeah, definitely.
I still think you went to the under 18s the other night, didn't you? Was it the
in the afternoon? Yeah. Well, I missed the first half because we were training, but they were playing against Manchester United, so we caught the second half, and it was impressive.
Yeah. So a last-ditch tackle, I saw the highlight. I was
wow. Yeah, some recovery run and a tackle, yeah.
It was amazing. Looking at the under-18s as well, can you see players there you're quite excited about in the years ahead?
Yeah, and I think it's so interesting when you watch those games. I don't know if you've watched too many of them, but just to look there and say, okay, how can you tell which players have got the potential to go into the Premier League environment? Because the two things look pretty different.
Yeah.
We just played Chelsea the night before, and if you compare what the game looked like, the speed of the game and the intensity and the physicality of the game, and then you compare it to there, you understand there's steps that they have to take. And it's like, okay, you need to understand what those steps look like. Sometimes it's a loan. Sometimes it's going out and experiencing football in a different environment. Sometimes it's failing at a loan. Sometimes it's a successful loan. There's no real path that says, we've cracked it here. This is what it is. It's so bespoke. It's so dependent on the individual. It's so dependent on the position they play. It's so dependent on everything. That again, I think the only way to do it is to continually speak to the people involved, to understand as much as you can about the people, understand as much as you can about the players, and then hopefully you make the best decisions.
And then just going back to the transfer window, obviously it's just closed. I can imagine as a football manager, you are constantly being asked if you want a player. I don't know how it works. I've played Football Manager once. But
it's similar to that.
You're not comparing that.
Well, but how important was it for you to get that window right in terms of bringing in the right people as opposed to just bringing in bodies? Was this a real kind of conscious thought in terms of who you wanted it to bring into the club?
Yeah, for me, I'm quite amazed how people even ask that question in a way, because of course you should bring in the right person. It's not just about a body, because you were playing a team sport. If you bring in the wrong person in any HR situation, if you employ the wrong person, it's quite a costly experience to make that change. So and also we're in a world where people, like I said at the start, focus on the individuals, you focus on signings. There's a 24-hour program, sports program going around. It's talking about Transfer Watch or whatever else. So, and I said in the week, if you just want to sign a body, of course we can do that. It's easy. There's millions of players out there, but to represent this club, to have the personality to represent this club, to understand what they have to do and to fit into what we're trying to do, then it becomes a little bit more difficult, especially in January, where, well, by definition, good players, people aren't wanting to just release those players and let you have them. There's a cost, and you want to make sure that you're not, compromising the club in the longer term by doing something that you'd regret in the short term. So it's a balancing act. But at the same time, I think we've done really well in terms of we're in a strange world where people are celebrating the transfer window before we've even kicked a ball. Well, surely the success of the transfer window is only determined by the end of the season, because the transfer window is just a way of collecting players. And we can say that it was a good window or not, but we don't know until the team plays. Surely that's how you measure whether the transfer window has been any good or not. I mean, you can make an assessment in terms of are they the right people, and I think we've had a successful window in that regard. But we still need to know, okay, how does the team function, and how's the team going to improve, and what's going to happen between now and the end of the season before we can say whether the transfer window. Because in the summer, everybody was very positive about the transfer window at West Ham from the outside, and everybody's looking at it positively. But in the end, the season hasn't gone maybe as people had liked. So I think we need to be careful about that and go, okay, well, let's see how we develop the team. Let's see how that goes.
Mm. I did enjoy your press conferences around the transfer window, being asked the same question week after week. And having
I need to work on myself. Obviously, I need to work on my patience. I'm going to go on some sort of course to develop patience. But yeah, I'm not perfect, so I apologise.
What is the philosophy? Not going to speak about players from other clubs. Does anyone speak about players from other clubs? Is there any manager?
Yeah, exactly. And I understand supporters want you to know, but they want to know, and I totally get it. And your name gets linked to so many players,
all sorts,
that it's just impossible to. And also, even if I was interested in the player, like I wouldn't be doing my job for this club if I say, "Oh yeah, I'm actually interested in Evan Ferguson." You know, like how does that work in the market? Oh, okay, West Ham are after you know, and so I wouldn't be doing the right thing for our supporters. But you know, I understand how it is. They want you to name names, and I have to be better. I have to be more patient. I am sorry.
No, I enjoyed it. Let's just talk about this season and maybe the season after that. What are your hopes for this season? A lot of people in the media and a lot of West Ham fans are talking about this as a transitionary kind of year to get to the summer and rebuild again. But do you see it like that? Do you have ambitions for this season and next? Like, where's your head at?
Yeah, my head is always on preparing the team as well as we can for the next match. That's always should be the start point. Talk about transition periods or free hits or all this sort of stuff. It's not. We're at a big club, an ambitious club that wants to win football matches. So you have to think about, okay, how can we prepare the team as well as we can to try to win the next match? And that means, okay, what does it look like? What does the foundations? How are we going to act? What's the role of the team? What's the roles of the individuals? And try and get as many points as we can and try and develop the playing style. Like I said, we're far from where we want to be. But we have to go there step by step, and that is a process of training, of working, of playing games, from making mistakes, from winning, losing, drawing, and analysing that. And okay, this is how we can improve. And it'll also be about, okay, maybe we need to improve the squad externally, etc., etc. So I mean, my ambition is to stay like that this season and try and get as many points as we can, and then. All that time then is information. It's information about, okay, what do we need to do in the summer to take us on again? Because as I said, at the start, we've got a way of playing that we want to get towards, because I think there's a fit there in terms of how we want to play and how the supporters want to see the game. But we have to work to get there.
I was just thinking today, with West Ham in Europe, obviously like 3 seasons in a row. Some of the greatest days of my life.
Can imagine.
Please get us back into Europe.
Yeah, for sure.
But that's the fans. Speaking as a fan,
that's the ambition, isn't it? That's of course it is. But my job, I can talk about that and dream about that, because I clearly, as an individual, as a coach, I'd love to do that as well. It's like, okay, but how do we get there? And what does it look like on the way? And when we get there, what does the team look like, and how we want to play, and what's the identity, and how we connect into the supporters, and how we build in that feeling that. Because I think if you have that, you can do some really exciting stuff. Whenever I've had success, it's like, okay, but there's a feeling that there's trust, there's a feeling that there's connection, there's a feeling that there's okay, we know what this team's gonna look like here, and then you can start to move forward, and then, like I said, then you can do amazing stuff.
Oh, you were looking for a yes/no answer when you were
No, I'll take that. We're on our way, aren't we? We're on our way. Graham, thank you so much for giving us this interview. What an amazing chat, and I'm excited, Ginge.
Just to sit here for hours chatting like that.
Yeah.
Amazing. Best of luck. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
And thank you for listening. We'll see you next time on Ironcast. Until then, come on, you Irons.